Welcome Sim Horizon fans. I'm Rob Ainscoe, software engineer and owner of Sim Horizon LLC. So today I'd like to go over the EK water-cooled memory block. This is a 4-memory module block
with 2 pairs Heatsinks with front and back plate.
It also comes with some thermal pads. These pads are going to actually go on the memory chips. And let's go ahead and start pulling apart brand new memory. I know this is a pretty scary experience. You spend $500 for some quality memory. So this is some Apollo DDR4 RGB memory. I didn't really want the RGB. In fact, I would prefer not to have the RGB. But I went ahead and ordered it. These are 2 modules. They're 32 gigs, so they're 2x16. There's 3600 megahertz, and they have a CL14. This is using, I believe, the Samsung B or Die series chips, which are supposed to be the better quality memory modules or memory chips for running at these frequencies. So this memory is going to go into this motherboard over here. This is an AMD 5950X CPU. It's going to be water cooled on a Zeus motherboard, which is has the water cooled blocks included as part of the motherboard attached to the VRMs. So we're going to be water cooling the CPU and the VRMs for this particular build. So let's go ahead and get started and pull this apart. Alright, put this aside. Let's open this fancy box up. I think most of this some of the cost of this RAM is probably in packaging. Alright, so we get a instruction manual. Don't care about that. Just to be absolutely clear on this, what I'm doing here is going to void warranty. So if you're concerned about warranty of your memory modules, don't do this, because this is absolutely going to void your warranty. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at these. So what we want to do here, I don't know if you can see this, but these are 16 gigs by 2 PC 3600. They're CL14, 15, 15, and 35. These are apparently the best memory modules, so that's why I chose these. Again, they weren't cheap. I think they're pretty close to $500 or somewhere around there. That's for 64 gigs. These are 2 16s. So this is 32 gigs, another set for 32 gigs, so I'm going to have 64 gigs in this particular motherboard. This build I'm making here is specifically for flight simulation. I don't really do any sort of gaming other than flight simulation. If you want to call that a game, that's fine. Whatever you like. But this build is focused on flight simulation. It's going to be Microsoft Flight Simulator, Prepared 3D, and Laminar Research is X-Plane 11 or X-Plane 12, whenever that comes out. All right, so let's go ahead and start pulling this memory module apart. Now, I was told that most of these heat spreaders here, and this is an RGB one, actually are just glued to the memory modules. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this apart very, very slowly and carefully. Alright, so to do that, it looks like we have a slight entry point here where I can pull apart the top piece here. Now what I'm trying to do is not get my hands on any part of the actual module while I'm doing this. You just kind of slowly edge these things apart. And as you can see here, it is just glue. Looks like the standard heat gun type glue. And there's a slot right here to get my screwdriver in. And then I just twist up slowly. Slide it in some more, twist up slowly. Alright, so we've got these separated. Now the next thing I want to do is, now every memory module is going to be different. 90% of them, or maybe 95% of them, are just glued on heat sinks like this with the RGB stuff. Alright, so I'm going to go in through here, and I'm using a very small screwdriver, standard head screwdriver with a very small head. I don't know if you can see that. And that I'm going to use to slide through here. Now be very careful to go straight here. You do not want to go side to side. You want to make sure you run along the path of the plastic. So again, not touching anything on the memory circuit at all, or the memory module at all. So as we go through here, I'm just kind of pushing the screwdriver through, slowly lifting this up, making sure I'm not touching the memory module. Alright, slowly push this up. Don't put too much force on this, just kind of get enough to get it loose. Okay. So that's that side loose. Now I'm going to go in here through the same area. Right here. That's where the glue appears to be. Actually, it may not be working out so well. Alright, so I'm going to have to bend this back a bit more. Again, this is destructive. You're not going to be able, well, you could reuse them, I guess, if you want to bend them back, but I wouldn't recommend it. So let's try and get our screwdriver underneath here. I don't know if you can see that. So we can get to, you see these little areas here, this is glue. That's not glue, actually these two are glue, so let's try and get those loose. Alright, so can't really get in there, so what I'm going to do is touch the circuit board here. There's no components on this particular section. I'm going to put a screwdriver in here, and I'm just going to leverage it up. Slowly leverage it up. See how that bends up now? Okay, so now we've got this up. Let's try and get this small screwdriver in here. There we go. So we've got the small screwdriver in here. Let's try and loosen up this plastic. Or I should say loosen up the glue. Again, I'm doing my best not to touch the actual modules here. There we go. That peels right off. Looks like there's a thermal pad here. I don't know why there's a coating here. It almost looks like they forgot to remove the coating on the thermal pad. Huh, interesting. It looks exactly like that, but maybe this is by design, I don't know. But typically, you don't want this type of non-heat transfer material on the actual ICs. Maybe it's some weird thermal tape, I don't know, but interesting. Let's get this off of my fingers. Alright, you can set this aside if you, whatever, want to try and reuse it at a later date. And I guess you could bend it back into shape. But for now, I'm just going to set it aside. Will not remove. Okay, so I've got that one side off. Now let's basically do the same thing on the other side again. Try not to touch any of this ECU part. Just hold on to the plastic up here, and we'll open this up some more so we can get to that plastic there. This side's a little bit tricky. I'm not sure we can get something in there to leverage without hitting something. I think we can, so let's just slowly try this. Okay, there we go. Noise is okay, that's just the glue coming apart and the unit coming off. It's not damaging anything. Alright, so let's go in on this side again. Let's loosen this side up. You can slowly pry this up, don't just yank it up. Just go very slowly with it. And eventually it'll just come loose. There we go. And this tape came with this one. Okay, so that is that one done. Now the memory module should just actually slide right out, and it does. Okay, so that's just the RGB light enclosure on the top. And there we have it, one memory module. This memory module, we'll get into that later, but we're going to clean all these memory ICs here. And all of those, we're going to clean those with some alcohol. And then we're going to put these thermal pads on them. And these thermal pads are double-sided, so you take one side off and you take the other side off. And I'm going to put the thermal pads on all these main chips here. And then once we got that done, we'll simply put these in here, like so. Then we're going to put the cover on for them, like so. Right, and we'll have the thermal pads in between here holding the memory modules together. So it'll be like that. Maybe more like that. So that's what it's going to look like. And then later on, we're going to connect this to this through some screws. And we're going to continue on to 3 more of them. Alright, so that's just one laid out. Put that there. Now we're going to repeat the same process for this module as well. Okay, so that's getting the memory modules off. Now, if you have a magnifier or a scope, you might want to put it through the scope just to make sure there's nothing damaged. I'll go ahead and show you how to do that on my scope. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, so now that I've got the memory modules separated, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick check on these memory modules to see how they, if there's any damage from my extraction. Probably will not be, but let's just double check anyway. It's a good idea. So what I got here is a micro link scope. And what this basically does, it can video feed out to a larger monitor over here. It's HDMI, so it's only 1080p, 1920 by 1080. But it's enough to get a good zoom factor, as you can see here as I move this along. Let's go ahead and take a look at the end bits that I was adjusting, or I should say the end bits, which is where I was had the screwdriver in, and let's just take a look to see if there's any issues with those end bits. Doesn't look like it. Let's go ahead and move it along a bit. Let's go ahead and turn it over. Make sure we have no problems on the other side. Okay, nothing here of any significance. Okay, that all looks good. Looks strange. Again, this is what it looks like from the camera's perspective. Magnified to HDMI monitor. We can probably sharpen the focus up a bit. There we go. It's a little bit better. And let's just go through here, make sure everything is okay. So that's the process of going through, just checking my work, making sure there's no issues. Again, I don't think those marks are significant. Okay, so I verified that the RAM module is in good shape. It doesn't look like there's any issues. I've done all 4 of them over here, so we're good to go there. So now the next step is to put these thermal pads on, and they just peel off, and then you peel the blue side off as well, and then you stick them on each individual module. There's 8 pads here, 8 modules there. But before we do that, we're going to need to clean them. So let's get some alcohol out of here and get some cleaning items out. Alright, so I'm going to pump a little bit of alcohol up here, set that in it, and let's go ahead and start cleaning. It's a fairly monotonous process. I recommend using tweezers for pad application. Okay, so that's that one side done. I'm going to do a quick test fit here. Yeah, let's go ahead and place this in here so we can get an idea of what it would look like. Okay, so we have a bit of overlap on the material here. So I'm going to need to move it just this way a little bit. You just want to make sure you have enough clearance so when it actually goes into the memory slot, it doesn't bang up against the pad. So what I'm going to do is move those pads up just a little bit. Okay, let's try that out. All right, so we're clear here. That shouldn't cause any issues with getting in the slot there. All right, so now that I know kind of about where to put these pads, you want to err more to the upper side here to make sure there's enough clearance. My next set here on the back side. Now you may be running memory modules that don't have, that may just be one-sided, they may not be two-sided. It depends on the memory modules you purchased. Okay, so getting this blue coating off is probably going to be tricky. This is why I have an X-Acto knife here, just in case. I'll try to use my tweezers to see if I can poke it loose, but I have a feeling, oh, I got lucky on this one. All right. I'm gonna not do that. Now here comes the tricky part. Now we've taken all this off. We don't want to put this back down on the towel material here. So what I'm actually gonna do is clean this off. Is to make sure this is lined up before I put it down. And that could be tricky. All right, let's see what we can do here. Different approach. I'm going to go down like this because I know there's no pads on it. And slide it up against this lip here. Now I'm going to go down like so. Okay, I think that one is reasonably secure. Be careful putting this down. Now there is, when it comes to getting it in perfectly lined up in these slots here, there's definitely going to be some wiggle. So it is going to move a little bit on the pads, but hopefully no more than probably a millimeter or two at most likely it's a millimeter. All right, so now let's go ahead and the top side here, remove the All right, now here's another tricky bit. Let's try and get this down without, see if I can use this. Again, I'm just gonna try and angle in over here. And drop it down on. There we go. Okay, so now to secure these plates, we got some screws here. So I'm going to go ahead and secure these plates. All right, one memory module done. Three more to go. All right, so I've got my 4 memory modules set up now. I've put the EK heat sinks on them. They're all fastened and secure. I've done all 4 of them. A tedious task, but the thermal pads are in there. Everything's secure. And now is the time to test. So the next step is to take these RAM modules and insert them into the motherboard. Make sure I got my slot correct. If I did this well, all these holes at the top here will line up correctly. All these holes here will line up correctly with the holes in the water block here. Okay, so we've got these in, and I'm not sure exactly how well this is lined up. It looks like one of these is possibly a little too far to the right here. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. Let's go ahead and put this down and see it. We might have enough leeway in the water block to deal with this. So actually the water block, I want it this way around. We'll just have to see. It's a bit of a tight fit, so we'll just have to see if that works. Okay, well, what they suggest here is that we apply either these pads, and I'll make sure there's room for the holes. So we do something like this, cut the pad down the middle. Or they also suggest using paste. Apply thermal compound, lightly coat the top of the DIMM module with electrically non-conductive thermal compound. So I can either use the pads or the pads will look like they'll need some holes in them, which might make things a little bit ugly. So what I might actually do is go ahead and just use thermal paste, since I have plenty, thermal grizzly, and then just put paste along these. Okay, so the RAM's installed. I'm going to go ahead and clean the tops here with some isopropylene alcohol. This one's already been cleaned, but I'll go ahead and just brush it up again. Let's get rid of that. smooth surface here. Now what I'm going to do is apply some thermal paste. It's going to be spread out. I have a little spreader here. It's just a piece of plastic from a prior build, I believe, and I'm just going to spread it out. Don't want to put too much on, don't want to put too little on. All right, so we've got a fairly even cover of thermal paste here. It's just going to sit on top, like so. Now all these screws I'm going to put in loosely. Don't tighten anything, just get them loose, in there loose, just threaded. Just in case there's any tolerance issues between the memory modules and the water block and the alignment. You want to keep things loose so it gives you a bit more wiggle room to get things properly aligned. Wiggle room is a good thing. Over the years, I've learned that it's important to make sure you leave things initially loose and never tighten anything down until you've got all your fasteners actually threaded in and ready to use. Okay, so that is that. Oops, I don't want that one. Let's see what this one does here. Let's get rid of this stuff. Okay, so all of these are nicely threaded now. I'm going to go ahead and tighten them down. Start from the inside. Now just tighten them down till they're snug. And once we've gone through a whole pass of just tightening to snug, then we'll do a final tighten. A quick word of warning, this is Alcatel or whatever it is they call that plastic. It's a type of plastic. Do not get rubbing alcohol on this plastic. As you can see, there's quite a bit there. Quite a bit more. All right, so that's all the excess cleaned off. And that is one EK memory block, water-cooled memory block installed on Apollo DDR4 RAM modules. The way I'm going to actually configure this is going to be, this is going to be a dual loop. It might end up being a 3 loop, but the chiller a water chiller, which is a vapor chiller, will actually cool the CPU to below ambient, and that's going to operate on one separate loop. It's going to be an external unit. And for the VRMs here and the memory, basically I'm going to have a standard water loop going through a 480 millimeter by 60 millimeter thick radiator. So that's going to run through the VRM in here, along through there, out into the RAM, and this is going to return back to the radiator. To the pump. So radiator in, out, back to the pump. AMD is sensitive to memory timings. The AMD CPU, so the better the RAM, the more I can get out of the RAM, the more I'll be able to get out of the CPU as well. So this is kind of one reason why I decided to go with this water block for memory, which is something I normally wouldn't do. But because the AMD CPUs are very dependent on RAM speeds and performance, and especially latency, it's something I went ahead and decided it's going to do. So that concludes the EK RAM module water cool setup. Stay tuned for further videos. Thank you.